Back to me. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for attending tonight's forum for City Council candidates in Santa Ana for Wards 1, 3, and 5. My name is Norberto Santana, Jr. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief for the Voice of OC, Orange County's nonprofit newsroom. The forum is being brought to you tonight by the volunteers at Connect to Council here in Santa Ana. Spanish translation is available. Go check for the links on the Connect to Council Facebook page, and you should be able to get to it. If there's any issues, just reach out to us. Before we begin, I want to introduce Terry McCall, who will lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. Terry?
Good evening. Will you please cover your heart with your right hand and begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Terry. So just a quick introduction here. We'll have the first segment will go on the candidates for Ward 1, which will be Tony Adame, Cynthia Contreras, Timothy Anthony Gordon, and Tyvet Fan. We'll start with Ty, and if you can just turn on your camera and give us your opening statement. And the opening statements are 1 minute and 30 seconds for each person. Ty?
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. My name is Tyvet Fan, and I'm a Vietnamese refugee raised right here in Westside Santa Ana. I've been a resident for over 20 years, and am now lucky to be a homeowner with my husband, a U.S. Air Force veteran. Growing up, my family relied on food stamps and Section 8 to make ends meet. But despite this, I was the first in my family to graduate from high school and go to college at UCLA. Later, I earned my Master of Public Policy and Law degree at USC. So I want to use my experience as a Santaneta and my expertise as a city attorney and planning commissioner to serve Santa Ana residents. I will work on housing issues because I've lived in garages and overcrowded rental units. So we need to have more building, more construction to build housing and bring in revenue. So we need to collect unpaid in lieu fees to help residents today. I will work on expanding economic opportunity for residents because this COVID-19 pandemic is hurting everyone. So I want to work on expanding our legal cannabis economy to capture this growing revenue source. And I want to make sure that we get CARES Act funding to all the businesses here in Santa Ana. And we need to make sure it's easier to open a business in the city. Finally, I will work on public safety issues because my family has been the victim of a home invasion here in Santa Ana. But there's a lack of trust between our community and our officers. So we need to reform our internal policies and procedures. We need to have an oversight commission, and we need to invest in community policing. I promise to listen to residents, to be thoughtful and considerate about my votes, and to serve Santa Ana with the integrity and dedication that residents like you and like my mom deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Thomas. Thomas, can you hear?
There you go. Good evening. Hello, Norberto. Hello, everybody. Thank you to Connect to Council and for hosting this event, and for Norberto for hosting tonight. Always enjoy when you host. My name is Thomas Anthony Gordon, and I want to tell you a little bit about my background and why I chose to run for Santa Ana City Council, Ward 1. If there's anything I want you to take away from this debate, it's this. I am committed to listening to each and every one of you. I'm committed to working for each and every one of you, not just the people who are connected. I will always listen to all sides of every issue and draw the right conclusion. I have a proven ability to collaborate with all neighborhoods to find common ground, develop solutions, and analyze information objectively. which will be an asset on the city council as we face crucial decisions going forward. We need someone who understands Santa Ana values while also bringing to the table a fresh perspective. I'm committed to advocating for what's right for Santa Ana. I'm committed to advocating for our youth and the development of more constructive outlets for them. I'm committed to advocating for our aging population by supporting programs that help seniors age in place. I'm committed to revitalizing our business corridors and creating an environment where all businesses can flourish. We have major issues to address, but many of you have spoken loudly about too many homeless and too many shelters located too close to your homes, schools, or businesses. Too much crime, too many cars racing with squealing tires, too many potholes and too much graffiti, busted up streets and sidewalks, too few parks and libraries. To me, there is no issue too small.
Your
Thank
time's
you.
up. Cynthia?
Hello, it's my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, thank you, Norberto, for moderating. I am Cynthia Contreras, and I am running for Santa Ana City Council to represent Ward 1. I work for Orange County Probation, and I am the first in my immigrant family to graduate from college. I am married, a parent of 4 children, a homeowner, and a resident for over 25 years. I believe in public safety, quality of life, small business, responsible development, and creating opportunities for our youth. I bring proven experience. I believe we need to increase community policing while providing mental health trainings to officers and coordinate efforts with social services. And quality of life means responsible planning of Willowick, reopening all recreation centers, all libraries, filling our potholes, and ending streetcar racing that has become deadly in our neighborhoods. We need to create opportunities during these uncertain COVID times and help small businesses keep their doors open by being flexible and creative, and help working families re-enter the workforce by providing childcare. As Vice Chair of the Planning Commission for almost 4 years, I have voted for affordable housing projects, brought jobs for our residents, and improved parks. I would also like to include the voices of our youth between ages 18 to 25. They are voiceless, and we need to create spaces for them to participate in solutions about their futures. A vote for Cynthia Contreras is a vote for experience and a voice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Tony?
Hi, Roberto. Nice to meet you there. And I hope everyone's at home doing okay, staying safe. My name is Tony Adame, and I'm running for City Council here in Santa Ana for the same ward where I was born in, where I was raised in, and where I currently live here now, Ward 1. So I grew up here in Santa Ana, and my dad was a server at a seafood restaurant here in Orange his whole life, earning minimum wage. My mom stayed home to raise me and my 5 brothers. And growing up, even though we were, had access to very limited resources, I still went on to found here in Santa Ana proudly an internationally known company called Suavecito, among other smaller companies where we employ about 100 residents here in Santa Ana, which we're very proud of. Growing up, my family really relied heavily on the resources that the park here in Santa Anita Park made available to us. And so we had access to things like after school programs, youth sports, summer lunches. We used to go on fishing trips, we used to go on camping trips. And as we all know, for the most part, most of these resources have been taken away from our communities, and the city has defunded those and reallocated those funds to other parts of the city that might not have the same positive impact on our community that me and my family enjoyed growing up. Compounded with that, there's an epidemic going on here in the city that everyone knows about with affordable housing options. And there's not a lot of representation for that, at least in our part of Santa Ana. And
Tony,
to make matters worse. Yeah.
Tony, time's up.
Oh, okay.
For the intro. We'll go on now to specific questions for you all, and I'll just kind of rotate the order. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's start with the first question. We'll go towards, let's see here. Let's talk about Willowick Golf Course. We'll have Thomas, you can start on this round, and I'll kind of go in a different order this time around. But the question is basically, last year, Willowick Golf Course received a lot of attention as a potential site of development. If the city were to develop Willowick, what would be your priorities for use of that land?
My priority would be open space. There is a dire lack of open space in the city of Santa Ana, especially in the central part of town. And open space would be a massive priority.
Is that it, Thomas?
That'll do it. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Okay. My priorities are and have been, I've walked out there and talked to neighbors that back up to the golf course, and everybody 100% has said they want a good, viable, safe park for their families. So I really believe that a sports park that is inclusive of sports, a pool, a rec center, that provides our kids the opportunities to have a clean and safe place that's well lit 24/7. And aside from that, I really think it's important to create space that's, work-live space. And projects like that will also bring jobs to our community, local hires, so that we can include all of the community. But most importantly, I would go back out again because I need to hear from the residents that live there. They will be the most affected. And that's important to keep in mind. But definitely top-notch park, sports park, Irvine has them, other places, we deserve that type of environment for our families as well.
Thank you, Cynthia. Tony, let's hear from you next. And I'll just remind you guys, it's a 1-minute limit on the specific questions. You guys are doing great.
Sure, thank you. So we know that Willowick Park is about 120 acres. To put that in perspective, Centennial Park, which is our largest park here in our city, is 70 acres. So there's obviously a lot of opportunity to develop something in that part of the neighborhood that is in dire need. Also, that part of Santa Ana, we know that most of the residents there spend more than half of their income on housing. And so that's a very extreme amount of money for any family to have to put up with just for a basic need like housing. And so, with working with Garden Grove and, they're going through the process now of choosing a developer, we need to make sure that our community puts up with the fact that California has that Surplus Land Act, which makes it imperative that we look for affordable housing options before passing that over to any developer that might want to just put up luxury apartments. And so we need to fight for that. In fact, now there's a group called Rise Up Willowick that's having a meeting actually at the same time, and they're fighting for such things. So
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. One reminder to turn on your cameras so people can see your face. It'll make it easier for them to connect with you as you're answering the questions. And just one more little thing to remember. But
You forgot
And
something.
Roberto, may I answer the question?
oh, I'm sorry,
Got one.
Ty. I'm sorry. I'm
No
already.
worries.
I'm way ahead of myself. I'm too organized today.
Well, first, we'd have to recognize that Willowick Golf Course is very large. So there are a lot of opportunities there. First, I want to say that we don't have to choose only housing or only parks. We can have more than one thing there. And right now, we need to expand economic opportunities for residents. So first, I'd like to see that we have definitely some open space. Open space is integral for our health and our safety and our happiness. Secondly, we have to build housing. Santa Ana, California, we're in a housing crisis, and to say we're not going to build housing is going to be an issue because residents need a place to live. And thirdly, we should have mixed use where we have small businesses, interesting boutiques that are owned by Santa Ana residents so they can work there and actually live, work, and play exactly where we are now. So that would be my vision for Willowick. And I've read the reports. We need to make sure that we also advocate for some housing affordability there so that residents who do work in those businesses, who go to those parks, can also live at the Willowick Golf Course.
Thank you, Ty. Can you hear me here? Okay. Let's go on to the next question. Ward 1 is amongst the most diverse areas in our city, in Santa Ana. Recently, community members made the case for district elections to increase Vietnamese representation on the city council. How would you reach out to this diverse community and make sure that they are represented on the city council? And we'll start this time with Cynthia.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Remember to turn your camera on.
should I leave it on the whole time?
While you're answering the question, yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay. The way that I would reach out to the Vietnamese community is the same how I reach out to all communities. You know, I understand that it's become more of a Vietnamese ward, but the way I look at it is I would be representing everyone if I'm blessed. So it's the same outreach. It's the same type of campaign. Grassroots is what I'm used to. You know, the hard work, go walk every street, knock on doors. Right now with COVID, I'm a little more restrained. I'm not willing to send my young volunteers to do that because if adults are careless, the young kids will be too. But, you know, dropping lit, phone banking, take advantage of those things in social media. It's the same that I would do for any community. I wouldn't differentiate by ethnic community.
Thank you, Cynthia. Moving on to Ty.
Norberto, thank you so much for asking this question. As a Vietnamese American resident who speaks Vietnamese, this was really important to me because residents and voters like my mom don't speak English. They only speak Vietnamese, and that's what I'm doing. I'm talking to community members, community leaders who are mobilizing in mobile home parks. I'm talking to residents, I'm talking to voters. How? By working with newspapers, going onto Vietnamese TV stations, and doing outreach in Vietnamese. Representation is crucial to ensuring that we have a voice on the dais. And for over 150 years, or we can say since the 70s, Santa Ana has never had a Vietnamese resident represented on the dais because we've never had anyone from our community. I think that it's critical as someone who is grown up in this melting pot, that we have someone who can speak the language, who knows the culture, who knows the background and the history, and to actually do the outreach that we need. I'm very proud of being Vietnamese American. I'm very proud of being able to speak Vietnamese, and I will continue to do that work. But I'm also working and reaching out to all communities in Santa Ana, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move here. Tony.
Yeah, thank you. And so obviously, you mentioned with the new ward-specific elections, I think, that was a really great move for our city council at the time to choose to do so, because obviously with there being such a large Vietnamese community, I think in Santa Ana, that part alone, there's about 23,000 Vietnamese Americans living, and so they need representation. And so in order to have a true democracy here, it's great that they finally can have a fair share and a fair shake at a election here. Obviously the Vietnamese Americans in large part have the same struggles as us Mexican Americans growing up. And so also my parents don't speak English. And City Hall does its best, I think, up until now to try to have information available for Vietnamese Americans, to have things translated as such. And but I think there's a lot more that they can do. There's community centers in those areas where there's a lot of Vietnamese American residents where they can be doing a little bit more outreach. We still see now that most things are only broadcasted in English and Spanish. So there's a lot of work to be done there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thomas.
Thank you for asking this question. If you'll recall, Norberto, back in 2012, when the Santa Ana City Council redrew the ward lines after the census, there were some council members that were sitting on that dais at the time that purposely drew Vietnamese residents out of their ward so that they could seek re-election without being tampered with by the Vietnamese. I was the only person who stood up time and time again at City Council and said, every resident matters. We should not be dividing wards based on whether you're Vietnamese or Latino or Cuban or Canadian. It doesn't matter. Everybody here should have an equal voice. And I think it's wrong that this last council split the wards and drew the Asians out. And I spoke loudly then, and I spoke loudly several weeks ago when a member of the DPOC made some inflammatory comments. No other people spoke up.
Thank you, Thomas. So let's move on to the next question. We got everybody there, right? And the moderators reminding me, or the tech people reminding me, that you can keep your cameras on during the entire Q&A section for your ward. So everybody, Tony, Cynthia, Thomas, Ty, you should all have your cameras on at this point. So let's move on to the next question, which is the defund the police issue. The defund the police has been trending this year on social media. And the big question in front of many people is, should the police be defunded? And if so, why? And if not, what measures would you take to improve public safety? Tony, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. And so obviously there's the issue with defunding the police that, by all means, and also the Black Lives Matter movement that I think deserves a big part of our conversation here. And obviously I'm a big believer of the Black Lives Matter movement. And we know that the police department takes up about half of our general funds. And there's issues that the police department has been dealing with as far as being able to de-escalate situations without resorting to violence when dealing with our residents. And there's a lot more that could be done in regards to that kind of training. There's also the issue with our law enforcement being deployed out to deal with issues that probably could be dealt with in a more humane manner by civilian responders that are trained in certain issues like mental illness or substance abuse. Because in a lot of ways, there's a lot of problems that have deep roots that show themselves in the way of homelessness that can be dealt with in more creative ways to make better use of our funds there.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Thomas.
I am absolutely opposed, 110% opposed to defunding our police department. Public safety is the utmost priority of a city council and a city government to its citizens, its residents. To defund the police would be just a nightmare. We do have some severe problems: homelessness, drug abuse, needle giveaways, things of those sorts. But oftentimes sending out marriage counselors to domestic violence, that's one of the most violent. An officer is most likely to get shot and murdered at a domestic violence call than any other kind of call. I'm grateful for our Santa Ana police officers. I go out every year with the Shop with a Cop event, and I see them dig in their pocket year in and year out to buy presents for children in our communities that would go without if not for their generosity. So I'm grateful for them and all that they do.
Thank you, Thomas. Ty.
Thanks, Norberto. I believe in reforming our police department to increase public safety. And what I mean by that is, one, we really need to look at our internal policies and procedures to ensure that it actually does what it's supposed to do. It keeps our officers safe and it keeps our residents safe. We need an oversight commission. My husband's a JAG, and essentially that's internal affairs for the Air Force. And so he has done that kind of work, and so have I. As a city attorney, I've both represented our officers when they needed representation, and I've also helped admonish as well as reprimand officers who don't do their jobs properly. So I've seen both sides, and I know what we need to do to reform our police department. And we need to invest in community policing. As someone who's Vietnamese American, my community rarely has an officer who speaks Vietnamese, rarely has someone who can actually communicate with us. And as a kid, I was told not to trust the police because my mom didn't know how to communicate with them. We need to invest in hiring officers who are actually from our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Cynthia.
Thank you. So I do not believe in defunding the police. If anything, yes, we definitely need to look at current policies and procedures, perhaps an advisory committee that is inclusive of what our community looks like, and review procedures and policies, what's working, what's not working. Anything and everything can always be improved. Community policing worked. We know it works, but we stopped doing it. I was part of when Minnie Street was in the dumps, but community policing was going on, and we turned it around and we created Cornerstone Village. We have testimonies and we have proof that community policing is 100% effective, and we need to find more funding for that. Aside from that, just like SWAT teams, we need mental health team. We need a homeless team. And our teams, our police officers need to go out with social services teams, because right now, the people that are, at the short end of the stick is our community. Our police officers, go ahead.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Sure.
I'm going to move on to the fourth question, which is, do you think Santa Ana has done its share of addressing homelessness in Orange County? What else should the city do as a city? What else would you as a council member strategize with other cities and the county to ensure that all entities and all communities are taking on their fair share of the challenge? Ty, we'll start with you.
Yes, unequivocally, Santa Ana has done its fair share of working on the homelessness crisis. We know that we have more shelters than other cities. We know that the county is trying to enforce or implement or mandate shelters in our cities, and that's just not fair. That's an equity issue. I'm willing to stand up to that. I'm willing to speak against the county failing to do its job and failing our residents. In fact, they talk about how they don't have enough money or ability to open a shelter, but as soon as COVID hit, they opened a shelter in Trabuco Canyon. So I know they have the funds to do it. I know they have the ability to do it, and we're going to stand up and we're going to continue to sue the city, and we're going to continue to ensure that our settlement in court with OC Catholic workers is upheld. And I promise that I will fight for residents, because we need to invest in our community. We need to invest in our residents who are experiencing homelessness, and every other city needs to do its fair share to deal with this crisis.
Thank you, Ty. Thomas.
We have absolutely done more than our fair share as residents of the city of Santa Ana with regards to the homeless problem that we have. We've spent more money than any other city. We've invested more money than any other city. Our resources are running dry. They are taking from our residents, our children, our community, our programs to fund these programs and services. More than 50% of all people that are on the street, hundreds and hundreds, are not from the city of Santa Ana. South County cities in particular are driving and dumping their homeless here. South County cities, Laguna Beach, etc., transport their homeless people to jail, and then they're released onto the streets of Santa Ana, never to leave. So I would definitely make sure that other cities, that when we sue them, like Laguna Beach, that we hold them to it. We do not let them out of the lawsuit, which they just did. They make a big stink and say, we're suing, and then they drop cities, they drop cities, they drop cities. And Judge Carter says, tough luck.
Thank you, Thomas. Tony.
Yeah, thank you. Without sounding too much like a broken record here, I also think that Santa Ana has taken upon its more than its fair share. And as Thomas mentioned there, with Judge Carter, he's done a great job in trying to enforce, every city to uphold their end of the stick there. And as we all know, here in our own backyard, the county's building that Yale Transitional Center next to Centennial Park. And obviously our community around that area needs to be made aware of what's happening. And their voices obviously need to be heard. Obviously it's an industrial area, so there's a lot of businesses there. And as a business owner myself, I need to make sure that there's people that are outreaching and that people know that there's a plan for the homeless during the day, because there isn't a lot of outdoor space in the general plan that they have in mind now. So we have to ask where these homeless people will be venturing out during the day and possibly affecting our infrastructure in our neighborhood there.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Cynthia.
First of all, I'd like to actually commend our council. They have built their fair share of shelters. They took responsibility for the numbers that we had. They also have tried to hold the county accountable, and they filed lawsuits. Now it's other folks' turn. We've done our fair share. There are a few cities that have stepped up, but there are many more that haven't. I'm not for the Yale shelter. Our families are too close. We have a school that's too close. It's not the right fit. Just like projects that come across Planning Commission, this is not a right fit for us. And we should not stand it any longer. And I think that, we can help other cities get to where we've gotten so far and share our experiences, but no longer on our residents' backs and pockets.
Thank you, Cynthia. Let's go on now to the kind of last question before our lightning round, which is more about your priorities as a council person. I'll start with Tony on this one. And just basically, if elected, what's an important issue that we maybe haven't addressed here already that you would address in your ward? Tony.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, I'm kind of a product of our Parks and Rec, and I think in a lot of ways, because our youth obviously don't have the right to vote here, they get forgotten. And I'm someone that has been fortunate enough to succeed in my community based on what was available to me growing up. And there's a lot of things we can do in those rec centers to not only help our youth out, but to help our community out. We know that there's a big need for people for food, and especially now with after school programs, or at least with school being ran from home, we know there's a lot of issues with Wi-Fi, and these issues are going to be continuing even past the whole COVID epidemic. And so we need to rebuild our neighborhoods and have someone that's a champion for residents to be able to get their kids to go somewhere where there's going to be safety, where there's going to be things for them to do to get them out of the house for the most part, but also have it be advanced enough where they can have Wi-Fi and access to technology.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Cynthia.
My priorities are community and police relations. We need to improve those, have better communication. The budget, with COVID, right now we are where we are, but we have no clue what that means and what it will look like come next year, what that looks like for our programs, jobs, and for small businesses. I was also a small business owner here in Santa Ana, and I know the worries, and so those are some of the things. And also quality of life, that's huge here in our ward. Car street racing is madness. It happens almost every night. We hear it. You go down Rate, every intersection has black donuts, and that's unacceptable. People have lost their lives. Our kids can't walk safe through our neighborhoods any longer, and that's unacceptable. And we need to come together to find solutions for that, and not just temporary ones. So those, and of course, continuing to find affordable housing, community benefits with new development that comes in. Those are my priorities.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thomas.
Public safety, number one. We got to make sure that there's 160,000 calls for service every single year in the city of Santa Ana. 160,000 calls. That means every resident in the city gets a half a call for service. That's how many there is. That's 4 times the number of any other city across the planet. It's just extreme. Too many calls for service. Number 2, parks. We need more parks, open space, programs, pools. The city of Santa Ana just laid off 200 people. Economic development. We need to make sure that our businesses are not being shuttered, that job creators are allowed to flourish and grow. Too much regulations. We just write a law like that stops street racers or homelessness, and it doesn't. We can't just put up a sign and make a problem go away. Graffiti, needles. I've spoken up on all these issues. I wrote the law on graffiti. I helped stop the needle program. I have been fighting homeless shelters. We got to keep the inertia going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Ty.
First and foremost, we need economic development on the west side. The Harbor Business Corridor is a prime space for economic development. When you drive down Harbor, what you get is vice and empty storefronts. So first, we need to make sure we have mixed-use developments that have both businesses that will bring in tax dollars and revenues and draw in folks to come into Santa Ana to buy and spend, but also have apartments and housing so that our residents can rent, can live, can buy here in the city and shop, work, and play where they are. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we have to do outreach with the Vietnamese American community. If my mom goes into City Hall today, there's not one person who speaks Vietnamese. How do we service our residents if we are not prioritizing employees, volunteers, and others who are able to have that dialogue, that communication? So that's the second thing I would do. And finally, yes, we need to invest in open space. We need to revitalize the parks that we have, and I'm more than happy to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty. So now we're going to move on to a lot of people's favorites, the lightning round. Very simple, straightforward questions, yes or no. They're tough. They're not always easy to deal with, but we'll put them out there. And we'll just kind of go. I'll try to vary up the order as much as I can. So we'll start on the first one, and these are just basically community questions that have been put out there. So one, the POA. Will you accept the support of the Santa Ana Police Officers Association? Ty.
No.
Thomas.
No, they've never called me.
Cynthia.
I've interviewed, but I haven't gotten a call back. So, if it comes through, yes, I want to work with police. They're an important part of our community.
Tony.
I support the police department, but no, not this time.
Campaign finance. Are you aware of any independent expenditures spent to promote your candidacy at this point? Thomas.
Well, no, because they're an independent expenditure, but I won't accept them. I will renounce them. So no dark money for me.
Cynthia.
No.
Tony.
No, I do not.
Ty.
No.
Do you, third one, do you support rent control in Santa Ana? Cynthia.
No.
Thomas.
Not as it's currently written.
Tony.
Only with the work in partnership with homeowners.
You guys are way going over the yes or no, but Ty.
I support vouchers.
Okay. Boy, everybody's going around this yes, no stuff. This one is
No.
more less the same. Immigration. Current state laws, such as the Trust Act, limits what information that cities can share with ICE. Would you collaborate with ICE more, less, or at the same level as the current state laws allow? Ty.
Less.
Thomas.
Well, that's more than a yes or no question, but I would say less.
Cynthia.
I would say same.
Tony.
I'd say less.
Okay, let's move on to campaign finance. If you had to characterize the level of real estate developer financing behind your personal campaign, independent or otherwise, would it be no financing, same financing, or a lot of financing? So again, the question here is really developer financing. How much developer financing is connected to your campaign? None, some, or a lot? We'll start off with Tony.
0, none.
Cynthia.
Some, little.
Thomas.
0.
Ty.
None.
Okay. Police oversight. Are you in favor of a civilian oversight of panel over the police? And if so, what powers would it possess? Review focused, investigation focused, well, let's just do that way. Review focused or investigation focused. So basically, what's the kind of, would you support police oversight in the city? And if you do support it, what kind of oversight panels would you support? Those that are based more and focused on reviews, or those that have investigatory powers? Thomas.
I would say investigatory powers as needed.
Cynthia.
Advisory.
Ty.
Both.
Tony.
Investigation powers.
Nice. Okay. Here.
These aren't really yes or no questions.
Yeah, you're right. They're a little bit. There's a little bit of a variety.
Multiple choice.
Well, you guys were blowing right through the yes and no.
You're tricking us
a little bit. Let's see here. Taxes. Would you consider changing or repealing Measure X? And that's a yes or no. Ty.
No.
Thomas.
Yes, I fought against Measure X. They lied to us. Take it away.
Cynthia.
I did not vote for it, so yes, take it.
Tony.
Not at this time.
Affordable housing. Would you have the housing opportunity ordinance require more affordable housing units, the same amount, or fewer units? So the answer on this one is more affordable housing units, the same amount, or fewer units in the city's housing opportunity ordinance. Let's start with Tony.
Same.
You
Sorry,
good?
same? Yeah,
Same.
sorry. Yep.
That's okay. Cynthia.
Same.
Thomas.
I think we should leave it as it is written currently, but City Council and the Planning Commission just voted to repeal it. So
Ty,
First, I'd like to say that it was not repealed, but I'd like to keep it the same.
rolled it back.
you guys are already going well on me here. Let's see here. Homelessness. Do you support the lawsuit from Santa Ana against other Orange County cities over homelessness? Thomas.
Absolutely, but we're already dropping cities from it. So
Cynthia.
it was fire ready aim.
Yes.
Tony.
100%. Yes.
Ty.
Definitely.
Let's see here. Let's talk public safety. Do you support the Townsend gang injunction? Cynthia.
I need more information. I don't know where it's at right now.
Ty.
But injunctions can be good.
No.
Thomas.
As it's currently, it causes more fear than hope, and we need hope, not fear.
Tony.
I lived through the Santa Anita injunction, so I'd say no.
Immigration. Are you for or against sanctuary city status in Santa Ana? Tony.
4.
Ty.
Always have been, always will be for.
Cynthia.
4.
Thomas.
That's, again, it's not a yes or no question, but probably no.
Do you support, another one on immigration, do you support the city's immigrant legal defense fund? Thomas, we'll just start with you again and we'll go backwards.
That's an easy one, sure.
Ty.
Yes, I advocated for it.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes, and we need more.
Here. Well, there's an interesting one on term limits. Would you support term limits for the city council and mayor? Ty.
Yes, I also advocated for this.
Tony.
Yes.
Thomas.
I was front and center, and I said that the council should have 8-year term limits, and they gave themselves 12. Crooks.
Cynthia.
Yes.
So public health, needle exchange programs. Would you support a needle exchange program in Santa Ana? And Cynthia, we'll just start with you again.
That's hard coming from public safety.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Pretty simple. Yes. Tony.
No.
Thomas.
Absolutely not. And I fought to shut the last one down, and I'll do it again. It wasn't a needle exchange. It was a needle giveaway. $250,000 ended up on our streets for kids to play with.
Ty.
No.
COVID. Do you support the current city of Santa Ana policy of sheltering in place? Ty.
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Thomas.
Sure. Yeah.
Tony.
Yes.
Here. Another one on homelessness. Would you support the construction of another emergency shelter in Santa Ana for homeless people? Thomas.
Absolutely not.
Cynthia.
No.
Ty.
No.
Tony.
No.
Okay, let's talk cannabis. Would you want to have more, the same amount of, or fewer cannabis businesses operating in Santa Ana? Ty.
More legal cannabis.
Cynthia.
Same.
Tony.
Same at this time.
Thomas.
I'd have to look at the numbers, but I'm not opposed to cannabis. So if we can sustain it, then absolutely.
Go, please.
We're going to need to wrap up the lightning round.
Okay, let's go to concluding statements now. And we can start with, I want to double check it out. Time is for concluding statements. 1 minute and 30 seconds apiece. Let's start with Thomas.
Hi, my name is Thomas Anthony Gordon. I thank everybody for watching tonight. If you're tired of too many needles on your street, too many drag racers, loud squealing tires, too much graffiti, too few parks, too few libraries, things along that, just the city, just spending recklessly. The city council just gave themselves a 700% raise while laying off 200 city employees. We can do better than that. We can do a lot better than that. It's time that we repeal Measure X. We bring business back to Santa Ana. We make Santa Ana competitive again. We make Santa Ana clean and safe again. And we vote for Thomas Anthony Gordon, because I'm just not afraid to get up there and just make things happen. Thank you. Have a good night.
Cynthia.
So you've heard about my position on different things, but a bit about my background is my mom came to the U.S. when she was 12 years old with her sister. Both their parents had already passed away. She started as a nanny and a maid at 12 years old. Later, she found her cousin Aurora, who that is my middle name as well, and they became the dynamic duo. Together, they raised 2 daughters, worked blue-collar jobs, saved every penny to buy a home. They bought a home, became U.S. citizens, and they taught us about, how to be faithful people, honest, hardworking, and most of all, never forget where we came from. I think that many can relate when we had to translate at a very young age for everyone, and that goes for any language, Spanish, English, or Vietnamese when you're in immigrant communities. I want to share that aside from living here for 25 years, I've been involved in the community for 27 years and counting. I worked the city in housing. I work currently at the County of Orange probation for 15 years, helping youth and families become healthier through programming and parenting. I've also ran the Batterers Intervention Program, Child Abuse Treatment Programs. Then I worked at the Assembly, which is the state level for Congressman Lou Correa. And then I went to Washington, D.C. to work for Congresswoman Sanchez. I bring all of that, those resources and experience to our city. And currently I am the vice chair of the Planning Commission, soon to be 4 years. And I'm also the president of the Aquatics Boosters at Segerstrom High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Tony.
Thank you. And so I want to remind people that, for the first time in 26 years, we're going to be guaranteed a new mayor. And so we have the opportunity here to see our city finally change and break out of the cycle that we've been in the last 26 years. And, a lot of people that you'll hear from today are part of the same cycle of political circle that we've been dealing with this whole time. And so, beyond that, I'm also an acting CFO, and so I balance budgets for a living, and I've done that from scratch. And we know that heading into the new year, we're going to be in a lot of hurt with tax revenue not coming in at the level that it needs to be with all the COVID stuff going on. And so there's going to be a need for someone to be able to look out for our finances. And so we've gone over a lot of issues that I'm passionate about here in our city. And I'd like people to know that my whole life I've volunteered in our community. I donate to charities currently, and I've been a motivational speaker to our youth. And I feel like I am a good example of what could happen good in Santa Ana, and I'm committed to stay here in Santa Ana. And at the end of the day, I'm not a politician. I don't have political experience. I understand that. But I think for the most part, our neighbors and our residents are tired of that. We know that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We keep hiring the same people to represent us. The same results are going to come around and bite us. And so if you want change, vote for me, Tony Adame, here for council. Thank you.
Thank you again. Ty.
Thank you, Connect to Council, and thank you to all the residents out there watching today. My name is Ty Viet Phan, and I'm a proud Santa Ana resident, and even prouder to have grown up on the West Side. I know what it's like to grow up here in Santa Ana, and I've dealt with the experiences and the struggles that many of you have dealt with. I know what it's like to not know where my next rent payment is going to come from. I know what it's like as a kid to have to translate for my mom because she doesn't speak English, and all my aunts and uncles. I know what it's like to walk alone 15 minutes in the dark because there's no parking near my apartment. And I know what it's like to not be able to ask for help from your officers or the city because, again, the services just weren't there. They weren't reaching our community. So I want to use that experience. I want to use my experience as a city attorney who advises city council members, city staff, and planning commissions on how to comply with state and federal law. I want to use my experience as someone who's dealt with the same struggles you did to advocate for residents. I'm honored to have the support of local leaders as well as our public employees like the Orange County firefighters, and I would be more than honored to have your vote. I'm dedicated to supporting you and advocating for you. Thank you so much. Vote for Ty Viet Fan for Santa Ana City Council, Ward 1.
Thank you all. Again, great job. Great listening to all of your perspectives, and thanks for putting yourself out there for public
Thank you,
office.
Norberto.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Thank you very much. Take care.
See you all again. So we'll start transitioning now. Everybody who's running for Ward 3 can turn on their cameras, and we'll start to get ready for opening statements here. And I'll try to just keep things moving along, trying to be respectful of everybody's time. And let's see here. So let's start moving with here. You all hear me? So we can start moving into introductory statements. Let's start with Janelle Welker. You there?
Hi, Norberto. Yes, I am.
Awesome. So let's start, and it'll be a minute and a half for opening statements.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Walker, and I'm running for Santa Ana City Council, Ward 3. I have lifelong roots in the city of Santa Ana, where my family settled after fleeing Vietnam a week before Saigon's fall in 1975. Like many families in our city, my family is working class. My father, a U.S. Marine veteran, has owned his self-employed garage door repair and installation business since 1999, and he taught me the importance of hard work and integrity. As a child, I helped my family raise my siblings as they struggled to make ends meet. I attribute our survival to the support of our community, which has inspired me to pursue a career in public service. To obtain this goal, I worked my way through community college at Santa Ana College as a waitress at the Disneyland Resort, and graduated from UCI as the first college graduate in my family. Now as a policy advisor at the County of Orange, I connect residents to county agencies and community resources. I'm running to represent Ward 3 to create transparency in government, promote community participation, communicate how policies will affect our residents, and improve residents' quality of life. As a council member, my votes will reflect your residents' voice to address the homelessness crisis in our city, create opportunities for businesses to flourish, promote affordable housing, and improve our public spaces.
Thank you, Janelle. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Norberto. I'm the candidate that represents a breath of fresh air, and you'll find I'm going to do things very differently. So let's have the journey begin. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up at the mall in Washington to hear Dr. King speak. They sent out no invitations. There was no website to check the date. And how did he do that? He didn't go around telling people what needed to change in America. You know, he went around and told people what he believed. I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and they made it their own. And they told people. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, on the right time to hear him speak. But how many of them showed up for him? Zero. They showed up for themselves. It was what they believed about America that got them to travel on a bus for 8 hours to stand in the sun in Washington in the middle of August. And it's what they believed. We followed not him, not for him, but for ourselves. We're social animals. Communication is important to us. And how things are expressed really matters. And we can scare people into doing things. And though they may act, it's not what sticks. You have to give people something to stand for, something to believe in. And what Dr. King gave was a vision and how to get from here to there. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. But I ask you to please visit voteforcats.com. I have laid out a vision for our ward that is more extensive than any other candidate. Not cliches, rather a vision of what here to there looks like. Now, I'll tell you right now, I don't have all the answers, but if we have the courage to ask the right questions, we'll get there.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. Danny, let's start with you. And remember,
Hello, Santaneros.
I'll interrupt you for just 2 seconds. We have Spanish translation. So for everybody, I know it's tight when you're at a minute and a half, but try to maybe slow yourself down a little bit because it'll make it easier for the translation. And I always say that for the translators, they do a great job. And I always put that out there for them. You go ahead and start. Your time is completely starting all over now.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Santaneros. If you're watching this live or the replay, it means you are concerned about the future of Santa Ana, and for good reason. We are for the first time, we are going to be electing a new mayor in over 26 years. Not only that, but we are also voting in 3 council seats. That means 4 out of the 7 seats that make up the government of Santa Ana, the majority are up for grabs. The majority can dictate where Santa Ana is headed for the next few years. This is probably the most important time in Santa Ana's history. My name is Danny Vega, and I'm running for City Council Ward 3. I was born and raised in Santa Ana. Santa Ana is all I've ever known. I have my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I am also a father, a husband, God-fearing man, and work full-time as an engineer. I have also been a homeowner for 7 years now. I am running for City Council because it is time that we have regular residents like you taking control of our city. I share in the frustration of the Santa Ana residents. I am frustrated at our high crime rates. I am frustrated at our homeless crisis. I am frustrated at the high tax rate with nothing to show for it. So I decided to stop complaining and decided to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mark, and I think I heard that your camera's not working, but we can listen to you. Mark?
Are you here? Hello?
We can hear you, Mark. We just can't see your camera.
Right. Okay. Are we ready?
Yes, you're good.
Thank you.
You got a minute and a half. Mhm.
Good. Thank you. Good evening. As a former Connected Council member, I want to thank you for sponsoring tonight's event. I'm a 29-year resident of North Santa Ana. The reason I'm running for City Council is to bring effective representation to City Hall that will once again prioritize the north side of our town. Talk is cheap. Campaign promises filled with the opinions and proposals are undeliverable. A council member is 1 vote out of 7. The key issue in this race is experience. I'm the only candidate that has an experience in an elected office, working at City Hall, and working on city policies and issues. I bring a professional experience as a business executive for over 30 years, specializing in strategic planning, cost reduction, and contract negotiation. I have a 15-year history of rolling up my sleeves and volunteering for my community. As a former president of Floral Park Neighborhood Association and board member for over 5 years, I was honored to be recipient of both the Neighborhood Hero Award as well as the Legacy Award. Currently, I'm chair of the Planning Commission with the responsibility for advising and providing direction to city staff and the City Council on all matters related to planning and development within Santa Ana. Endorsements and support make an election. I have been shoulder to shoulder in the trenches with many folks and organizations that have endorsed me. I have over 130 endorsements.
Mark, thank you
I
again.
am the candidate that is experienced, trusted, and effective. I will bring North Santa Ana's voice to the city. Vote for Mark McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mark. Jesse.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Lopez. Thank you for partaking tonight and for doing your due diligence. I am born and raised in the city of Santa Ana. And let me begin by saying what you already know. Like you, I love this city. I grew up in a working class Latino household. My parents migrated to the United States from El Salvador during a very brutal civil war and left everything behind. They instilled in me and in my siblings 3 core principles: courage, integrity, and compassion. I became the first in my family to earn a bachelor's degree by working 2 jobs. I was a full-time student, a full-time employee, and I became unhoused due to financial struggles. And with much resiliency, I built my professional career in the legal sector, working for high-profile firms. I now work with Latino Health Access, a nonprofit here in the city, as a community health worker in their COVID clinics. And we help our families with food, economic, and public health resources. My passion for public service comes from growing up in the city and my love for the people of Santa Ana. I am an advocate for environmental justice, affordable housing, and local government accountability. My work is rooted in bringing people together and fighting for policies that will improve our quality of life. I am running because we need to have leadership that understands the importance of unity and understands the value that we already hold. Thank you. Thank you,
Jesse. We'll move here to the first question, and those are 1-minute time periods for them. So just you guys can all, in a sense, track yourself. So we'll start with Jeffrey. And the first question for Ward 3 is, The city has a lot of plans for high-rise development in Ward 3. The biggest controversial example of that was 2525 North Main that met with opposition from local residents. Is high-rise developments the answer for Santa Ana, in your opinion? Why or why not? And if not, what is a better solution? So we'll start with Jeffrey.
For cities over 250,000, we are the fourth densest city in the entire United States. In the aftermath of COVID, high-rise, condensed, high density is not going to be the answer. It's not going to be what people want. What makes Santa Ana well-positioned for the future is that we are authentic, we are original, we have architecture which is inspiring and architecture which is unique. You have Irvine has been created, which is just a bunch of redundancy. We are going to be positioned well for the future if we maintain our character. High rises have a place, and that's only right next to downtown. One Broadway Plaza is a ship that has sailed. Originally, I would not have supported it. I think it's out of proportion. However, if there's going to any place that's it's going to be appropriate, it's right near downtown, where we can take residents to go directly to downtown and shop and consume there. So, because we need a thriving downtown. But otherwise, it's the character of our neighborhoods that have to be maintained, and that will position us well for the future.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Jesse, what's your take?
Yeah, I think, I am supportive of economic development that centers the needs of our community. It is not enough for us to talk about like high rises and building homes, because that excludes small players from the market. And I think that we need to hold developers accountable to the needs of our residents. None of our projects should put undue burdens on our infrastructure or our residents, pedestrian safety, traffic, or on the quality of life issues that are most important to us. I am a champion of thoughtful development that thinks and puts our residents first, and thoughtful development that is smart. We need to demand a community-led process for any development, no matter the amount of density that is coming in for the city of Santa Ana.
Thank you, Jesse. Janelle. I think you're still on mute.
Apologize for that.
That's okay.
I do believe that we need more mixed use development. I am not a fan of having only luxury apartments that lead to nowhere. The biggest indicator of social mobility is actually transportation. So if you have access to other businesses or other recreational assets in the city, I think that is an option, because it is bringing in a lot more, it's addressing different issues in the community. But I do believe developers need to work more with the residents. They need to take a community assessment and survey and ask the residents what they want, and use some data. We're going to get results from the 2020 census in this next year. So we'll know how many residents hopefully are living in the ward. And I know that we have a huge housing crisis, so I do know that we need to build. But I do think there's opportunities in other land use areas. A lot of commercial or business properties that maybe have been shuttered for many years could be potential places for new development. I think we just need to, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Danny, what's your take?
Yeah, so what Ward 3 residents want is responsible development. As you mentioned, we saw that with the 2525 Main Street project. They wanted to ensure that the neighborhoods weren't going to be negatively impacted by any kind of development. It was actually a big learning experience for me. It was a firsthand look at what people power can accomplish, and I was happy to be a part of that. If we're going to build something there, we need to make sure that we have the input from the community, because ultimately what we end up building next to neighborhoods is going to impact the people that are living there. Now, if you were to ask me what we should be building there, I think a nice dog park would be really nice. But if we are going to be building any kind of building, we have to make sure that we include the neighborhood, and we have to make sure that we do responsible development that's not going to negatively impact the surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mark.
Humberto, could you repeat the question just?
Absolutely. The city has plans for high-rise developments in Ward 3. One controversial example was 2525 North Main that met with opposition from local residents. Is high-rise development the answer for Santa Ana? Why or why not? And if not, what is a better solution?
Okay, thank you. Basically, first of all, I think that there is areas within Santa Ana or at the north end and south end of Santa Ana where development can still exist. If right now the general plan for Santa Ana is in the process of being issued. This is a plan that's hasn't been updated since 1980. So 40 years we haven't updated the general plan. This general plan gives us the ability to look at some of our areas that are considered to be blighted and such like in our neighborhood, in our ward, Grand and 17th Street. There's a lot of empty buildings in that particular area. That is we're looking at the Grand Corridor, and what we're calling that is what we consider low to medium density mixed use with retail and everything else. So there is plans within our ward to do things like that. There's plans throughout the city. We've got at least 5 or 6 corridors that have been identified, and they've been identified to be Main Place or anything else. Main Place, go ahead.
Your time's up. Thanks again, though. I'm going to move on to the second question, which kind of piggybacks a little bit on what Jeffrey was talking about regarding historic properties. So Ward 3 has a lot of historic properties and features. How would you preserve the unique character of the area in the face of continued development and maintenance? And, I'll just kind of go reverse here. So Mark, I'll just start with you right now.
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for that one. First of all, the way we can help to preserve things at this point in time is the city has available historic registry as well as what's known as Mills Act. And we need to get as many historic homes that are put on the historic registry as well as Mills Act. We also need to preserve our neighborhoods as we're doing, for instance, in Floral Park, where we're basically going out and designating our neighborhood as a national designated historic neighborhood. We need to do more of that throughout the city. We need to make these homes and neighborhoods into historic districts. That will give us the ability to protect our foundation and protect who we are. Santa Ana is one of the oldest cities in Orange County, and we have to make sure that we continue to keep the authenticity as well as grow in a new direction with regards to housing.
Thank you, Mark. Danny, what do you think?
It's funny because when my wife and I were young and we were married, I remember driving through places like Floral Park and Park Santiago and just being at awe at how beautiful and how unique the houses there looked. And I remember looking at my wife and saying, one day we're going to live in a neighborhood like this. And sure enough, through hard work and dedication and good financial decisions, we ended up moving to the northern part of Santa Ana. I agree with Mark that we need to do everything possible to ensure that we keep that unique look of these neighborhoods because they're so beautiful for anybody who's ever driven by there. These houses are very unique, and we need to do everything possible to make sure that they stay that way.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Yes, I support the effort to preserve our homes. I know that for so many of us, our homes are a way to acquire equity, and we worked very hard to have what we have. And so I fully support the efforts to preserve the historic property in Ward 3 and beyond.
Thank you, Jesse. Jeffrey?
My first 2 battles that I did here on the political front here in Santa Ana involved tackling attempts by landowners to destroy the historic values of the properties. And I was astounded that every time I argued either before the Planning Commission or before the zoning administrator, on the other side of the table fighting against me was the planning department. The planning department, our planning department, who are supposed to be the century of the charm of Ward 3, were actually arguing to deteriorate what our ward had. So you asked me what I would do? I'd march right down to the planning department and tell them, this is what we're about. This is what's valuable to Ward 3. And either you get it or you're out of here. Mark mentioned the general plan that we have. It's written beautifully, the urban element. And yet, the head of our planning department, Mintran, hasn't even read it. Look, we have to have clear guidelines. And if it's not respected, then the neighbors are constantly going to come up and battle it. Listen, I was very pivotal in the 2525. I argued before city council. I'm currently pro bono attorney representing the 2525. And I'm astounded that I'm constantly fighting with our city. We need to change.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Janelle, did I get you on this one?
Not yet.
Yeah, you're next.
I am fully supportive of preserving and keeping the character retained for these homes for generations to come. And I think a great way that we can do it is to partner with the local historic society and partner with our local state legislators. Because once the economy is rebounding again, there may be opportunities for grant funding. If we have good relationships with our other elected officials across areas of Orange County and the state, and sometimes even for-profit companies have grants. I think we can find opportunities to help our residents preserve and maybe apply for these types of designations, as Mark was speaking about. But I really think that the city can help these residents do so. And I think it'd be incumbent upon the elected officials to make those relationships and make that plan a reality.
Thank you, Janelle. So let's move on to the next question, which is, do you think Santa Ana has done its share of addressing homelessness in Orange County? What else should we do as a city, or how would you strategize with other cities and the county to ensure that everyone takes in their fair share of that challenge? We'll start with Jesse.
Yeah, Santa Ana has done more than its fair share. And when we talk about addressing the homelessness crisis, we need to center implementing a housing first model with wraparound services. And this approach is guided by the belief that people need basic necessities like food and shelter before attending to anything less critical, such as job placement, budgeting, or attending substance use issues. Number one, we need to invest in job placement and mental health programs and bring in social workers. Secondly, we need to hold the Board of Supervisors accountable for their lack of care and concern for our residents. This is not a sole Santa Ana issue, but they have made it one, and it is clear that they do not respect us. We need to strengthen the relationships and collaborations with other OC cities to ensure that all cities and county governments are meeting their obligations. We also need to work towards decriminalizing the unhoused population in our community. You can talk to any cop. It's not the function that they wish to do. And I know that because I have law enforcement in my family. And it's something that a lot of them have expressed. And lastly, I ask you to remember my story. I wasn't unhoused because I was lazy or a criminal. I was unhoused because of financial reasons, which is the majority of percentage of why families, veterans, and children in our streets are also unhoused. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Let's move on. Mark.
Okay, definitely the city of Santa Ana has done more than their fair share when it comes to homeless. There's no doubt about that. And I think also we tend to look at it from the standpoint of the homeless that are on the streets. We tend to look at it from the standpoint of being in the shelters and how many shelters there are and everything else. What we also have to understand is the city of Santa Ana, I think, has gone one step further than what most people understand. And that is that I think, as Jesse mentioned, we have facilities that have wraparound services that are not just there as a shelter, but they're there as a home. They're there to be a facility that can be used for people to transition back into the workforce. We have a lot of that. We have a facility right now on 17th that's being built. We have a veterans facility that's also being built with respect to wraparound services and getting people out on the streets as working people, working class people. I've been involved with Mercy House and Wise Place, both of them transitional, and both of them have been successful with what they provide for the homeless at this point in time.
Thank you, Mark. Danny.
Yeah, so the homeless crisis is arguably the biggest frustration for our residents today. It has lowered our quality of life here. We can't walk through certain areas. Our children are being exposed to people defecating on our streets, using drugs, running around naked. Not only that, but we have had incidents where they have become violent. It wasn't long ago that a transient stabbed an individual outside of AutoZone, and sometime after that, one of our residents was pushed onto a busy street outside the restaurant Chapter 1. It is time that we treat this situation for what it is. It's an emergency. For once, we need to do what other cities have done, and that is look out for the well-being of our residents. That means no more homeless shelters. We have 6. enforcing our anti-camping laws and anti-panhandling laws. We need to have a zero tolerance policy for people who want to live out on their streets. They don't belong in our streets. It is dangerous for them. It leaves them vulnerable to be preyed upon, especially the women who are homeless. There was a report by the Orange County Register that listed the amount of homeless that had died due to conditions like the weather, and it was in the hundreds. We need to put up signs encouraging our residents to stop giving monetary handouts.
Your time's up, Danny.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Janelle.
The homelessness issue is one of the main issues that I speak about on my website. It's one of the main issues that I'm most passionate about. I work directly across the street from the courtyard because I work at the Civic Center at the Hall of Administration. Not currently, but before the pandemic, I always walked to lunch in the downtown area and made sure that I spent my dollars locally. And I would talk to the business owners who are negatively impacted by those individuals experiencing homelessness, who are languishing and are causing a lot of issues in that downtown region. I think the best way that Santa Ana can help address the issue is to partner and have good relationships with all of the central SPA cities, the service planning area cities. Judge Carter enacted a map, and in that map, Santa Ana is those individuals, a part of a region with its neighboring cities. And unfortunately, and I've spoken to council members in other cities, there are some councils who do want to create change and have homeless shelters, but some are in opposition. So I would go speak to those council members directly and try to build those relationships and urge them to build shelters in their cities.
Thank you, Janelle. Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you, Norberto. I think I understand your question a little bit differently than the way everybody else has been answering this. Have we done our fair share compared to other cities? Absolutely. Have we done enough? The answer is no. I appreciate what Christine Ridge, our city manager, has done. She's put wonderful programs in place. But as the other candidates have said, this is absolutely the #1 issue confronting the residents of Ward 1. You have a homelessness issue, which must be addressed with compassion, but you have a homeless issue, which is a quality of life issue. My response to this, which is detailed on my website, because I do have an extensive amount of experience with this. I appreciate Janelle works across the street from the courtyard, but I've spent the last 5 years actually working with the homeless of Santa Ana. So the first thing I would do is I have to stop the source. I go to the Red Roof Inn, I pull their permit if they don't stop taking vouchers and bringing the homeless in there, because they go in there for 30 days, and when the vouchers are up, they're into the creek or they're into Park Santiago. Next, we are the meth capital of Orange County. That's what attracts. We need to stop making us more attractive. Please take a look at my website for a very comprehensive solution to this.
Thank you all again. Let's take a look here. Next question is on, everybody's answered that question correctly. Does nobody have missed? Okay. The next question is the defund the police question. Obviously, defund the police is something that's been trending this year on social media. The question is, should the police be defunded? And if so, why? And if not, what measures would you take into place to improve public safety? We'll start with Janelle.
Thank you for this question, Roberto. So I do believe that the SWAT team within the Santa Ana Police Department, I don't believe Santa Ana necessarily needs a SWAT team. I think back in the 1990s, when we did see a lot more prevalent gang activity, it would have been something that would have been necessary. But at this time, I think we could maybe defund that department and bring in more community policing, community-initiated policing within our cities. I am not a proponent of defunding the police entirely. I've been a survivor of domestic violence. I was almost killed the night that my significant other tried to take my life. So I do believe that there are times where you need to call 911 and have a police officer present. But I do think the police officers do need the necessary tools to be in more places in the city at one time. We don't need to be spending the funds on special, highly weaponized arsenals or the SWAT team vehicle. So I do think we have an opportunity to change a lot of things. Bring more oversight. I'm a proponent of bringing in a community oversight board and making sure that police officers who are friends aren't investigating each other and making bad calls on those investigations.
Thank you. Danny. Oh, and Jonathan, you're in Ward 5, but your camera's on already. If you can turn your camera off. Thank you. Okay, Danny.
Is eager to talk. I am against the idea of defunding the police and most versions of it. I have a question for Santa Ana residents. How many of you drive down Bristol and First Street, look at the tagging on the wall and think to yourself, yeah, we could use fewer police here? Unfortunately, we are not in the position to cut back on the police, not in this city. You know, it's like Thomas mentioned that domestic calls tend to end violent, and good luck finding a counselor or marriage counselor to go out in the middle of the night and handle a dispute call. What you're going to end up having to do is have police escort that person anyways. And this is coming from somebody who's been very vocal about my feelings of the POA. We don't have a problem with the police. We have a problem with the union protecting bad police. So what we need to do instead is hold police accountable for their bad actions. And that's why I think a police oversight committee would help with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mark.
I'm definitely not in favor of defunding the police. I think that if you look at the people and talk to the people in our ward, for the most part, they're looking for more police protection, more police support. They're also looking for more information from the police. The police have done, I think it was mentioned earlier about the fact that that we've been doing a lot of hiring of police, and the demographics of hiring those police have been pretty much heavily towards Latino. We have about 60% of the police are now Latino. I think that's great, but we're missing the other areas such as the Vietnamese area, and I think we have to do some things to help us in that respect. I think also from the standpoint of being first responders, one of the things I think we suffer from in both fire and police is the fact that the first responders are usually one or the other, and they're typically out there dealing with drug abuse, alcoholism, or mental health issues. And I think what we need to do is we need to start to look at possibly bringing in some civilian responders that are expert in those fields that can basically take those calls and not have the police or not have the fire take those calls, which would reduce their number of incidences. And I think that's a good thing. There are towns, there are cities like in Oregon that have cahoots. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Jesse.
Yeah, I think that there's a fundamental difference between removing all resources from law enforcement and reallocating resources back into our neighborhoods. And I think that defunding the police is a call to action to get people's attention, which it has, to highlight the inequalities of a city's/county's budget. But it has also been weaponized by all kinds of people to silence that call of action by Black and Brown people who have been disproportionately negatively affected by over-policing and the criminalization of their humanity. I believe that we need to reinvest in our communities. We all know that we cannot police our way out of the current problem that we have in the city and in this country. And we also know that over-policing isn't working for Santa Ana. There is so much data to back that up. And we need to ask questions like, what is the role of a police officer answering a call to deal with somebody that is unhoused? They shouldn't have that responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Jeffrey. Well,
thank you, Roberto. I'm the only candidate amongst the 5 here that wrote extensively about police reform on his website. And therein I say very clearly, I'm against defunding the police. And if we're ever going to really attract major business into Santa Ana, there are a number of things we have to change. And one of them is we have to change our reputation as a city that's not safe. And I don't know how we achieve that without having a vital, effective police department. On the other hand, like in every department, in any business, things can be improved. And likewise, the Santa Ana Police Department can be and should be reformed. One, we need to improve community relations. They've got to do a better job of understanding the neighbors that they are tasked with protecting. Number 2, I'd rather assign away and reallocate their resources. I don't need them taking care of traffic reports. I don't need them taking care of visits to schools. I don't need them as focusing on violent crimes. Number 3, I think we need to do a better job of creating a vital, robust volunteer program here. I actually volunteered in December 2018 and yet to be called for a task. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeffrey. So I'm going to move on to the last question before our lightning round and then your closing statements, which is just, if you're elected, what is an important issue that you'll address in your ward that we haven't necessarily addressed tonight yet? I'll start with you, Jesse.
Thanks, Norberto. I think something that I often hear from Santa Ana residents in Ward 3 and having experienced this myself is the parking issue that we are experiencing. And Santa Ana residents are divided on this issue. And right now it's very hard for Santa Ana residents to get permits. Some neighborhoods want it, others don't. And so I propose two solutions. We need to change the current regulations to allow people to expand their driveways if they choose to. And we need to stop citing people for creating solutions to the problems that they are seeing in their neighborhoods. And we also need a citywide comprehensive parking study to identify existing parking issues and develop solutions that will maximize existing resources and identify strategies for addressing growth in parking demand with the keen awareness of the community's strong desire to maintain its existing quality of life, because parking is a quality of life issue. Nobody wants to come home from an 8-hour shift and drive around or wait around for a parking spot. I know what that is like. Thank you. And a minute is not enough to talk about all the issues that we could improve on.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate your patience with the process. Danny, what's your take?
I believe that Ward 3 residents simply want to maintain their quality of life. One issue that I have seen get worse over the years is the homeless wandering through our neighborhoods, breaking into people's cars, walking up to people's porches, and stealing packages. Our parks are not very well maintained as well, and oftentimes you have individuals in cars who use drugs, which is why prior to COVID, I would still drive to other cities like Irvine so my kids would have a clean and safe park to play at. Both of these issues could be alleviated if we had a higher police presence or just have more park patrols make the rounds. Another big issue that we have is a light at Santa Clara and Bristol, where that horrible accident occurred that took the life of that OC register editor. I don't know if plans have been made to add a light to allow for turning left, but I would make it a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. See here, Jeffrey.
You know, before I began my campaign for Ward 3, I met with neighbors from each of the 22 neighborhoods within Ward 3. And absolutely the first and foremost issue is the homeless crisis that that the ward has confronted. I know we've addressed it, but I don't want any ward constituent walking away from this forum knowing that that is not the #1 issue that I would tackle if I were elected. We addressed responsible development. Gang and gun violence is crucial. But finally, the issue that's most important to me, which is economic redevelopment, requires a variety of things which are interconnected. I want to work with the Santa Ana Unified School District to improve education. We need safety that will attract business in here, but we need a robust, phenomenal downtown. We've done a lot of work in the last 10 years, but things have plateaued. We have over 10,000 residents that will be moving into the Ward 3 area between Main Place and City Place. They're going to have an option of going either to Orange or to Santa Ana. I've got to build the yellow brick road going from North Santa Ana into downtown.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate it. I know these times are tight on all of you. Janelle.
I believe one big issue we haven't addressed is the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on businesses and workers. I know that the city of Santa Ana has 31,000 businesses who employ thousands of workers across Santa Ana and across the county of Orange. And unless we look at the Workforce Development Board in the city, who is currently receiving more funding because workforce development boards receive more federal funding in times of economic recession, I think we need to work directly with the director, and that would be one of the first things I would take on as a council member, to have a community needs assessment to see what jobs are still available in this COVID-19 market, and look at the vendors who currently try to connect residents to employers, and see if those vendors are up to par with what we need to help train anyone who needs to be retrained and reskilled, to help those with higher education degrees who are out of work, and to help those who want to maybe go into the trades. So I think that getting us back on track, getting us our livelihoods back is going to be the most important issue I want to tackle on the city council.
Thank you, Janelle. So I'm going to move everybody now to the lightning round.
Umberto.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. Go.
Do I get a chance?
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
All
Thanks
right.
for reminding me.
Okay. No, that's quite all right. First of all, I'd like to say that one of my number one issues is economic development and workforce development. I think Janelle just talked a little bit about that. But from the standpoint of where we are with this pandemic situation, we really have to do things to make sure that when we exit this situation, that we're able to get our businesses back online. In our own ward, one of the third largest revenue generator is Main Place Mall. That Main Place Mall has been basically shut down for quite some time. And they're also going to have a process that they're going to be building more not affordable, but housing and apartments and offices there. And that kind of activity hasn't started yet. We just recently went through the WHO and basically tried to get some of our developers to get going. If we can get the developers going right now on all the projects that are on the table in planning, I think that's going to be a great thing for us to be able to start to be able to recover with our workforce and our workforce development. I work at Santa Ana College with the students in workforce development. I work also with the training trades on workforce development, and we need to do more workforce development because we have double-digit unemployment at this point in time.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. I'm going to move on now to the lightning round. You guys, I'm sure, heard the first round. They're not that different. The questions are pretty much the same, but we will keep them. I'll try to be a little bit better about just keeping them to yeses or nos. Really tough. Jesse, if you thought the 1 minute was tough, the lightning round is even tighter. But
really not that hard.
Right.
Norberto, did you say the questions are the same?
Yeah, relatively. I'm just going to go right now.
Yes, no, 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 yes, and yes.
Well done. Hey, that's pretty good memory.
Thank you.
So I'll just move down here. POA. Will you accept the support of the Santa Ana Police Officers Association? Jesse.
No.
Mark.
Yes.
Danny.
No way.
Jeffrey.
No.
Janelle. I think you're on mute, Janelle.
Oh,
No, she's not.
I heard you.
no.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I didn't maybe hear you. Rent control. Do you support rent control in Santa Ana? Jeffrey.
Yes.
Danny.
No.
Mark.
No.
Jesse.
Yes.
Janelle.
No.
Immigration. When it comes to the Trust Act, which limits what information cities can share with ICE, would you collaborate with ICE more or less at the same level that the current state law allows? Jesse.
I would never collaborate with ICE.
Mark.
Same.
Danny.
Same.
Jeffrey.
Would I comply with the law? It's the law. I'd comply with the law.
Janelle.
Less.
What about sanctuary city status? Are you supportive of that? Mark.
Yes.
Danny.
Yes.
Janelle.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
No. However, I do support helping asylum seekers.
Jesse.
I really thought we were doing a yes or no round. But yes, I support sanctuary cities.
Well, I guess there's a little bit of changes. Some of the questions have a little bit like where it's more or less, but it's basically the idea is to just give the viewer an idea of how on tough issues you'll go one way or the other. Townsend gang injunction, yes or no? Janelle.
Yes.
Jesse.
Is the question, do I support the gang
Correct.
injunction?
Yeah,
No,
the Townsend gang injunction. Are you supportive of it?
No.
Mark.
Yes.
Danny.
If done correctly, yes.
Jeffrey.
Providing it's constitutional, yes.
Okay. See here. Police spending. Would you keep it at the same level that it's at? Would you lower it, or would you raise it? Jesse.
I think it's arbitrary to say if we're going to lower it or not. We need to really look at all the departments in the city and assess what their needs are.
Okay. Janelle.
Maintain the budget.
Danny.
Same.
Mark.
Maintain the budget.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, there's no way to answer that question. I'm going to pass.
Okay. Cannabis, would you want to have more in terms of businesses in the city? You want to have more, the same amount that you have right now, or fewer cannabis businesses operating in Santa Ana? Janelle.
More legal cannabis.
Jeffrey.
You need to diversify business.
Danny.
Same.
Mark.
Same.
Jesse.
More legal.
Measure X, the sales tax. Would you consider changing or repealing Measure X? Danny.
No.
Mark.
No.
Jesse.
No.
Jeffrey.
Absolutely.
Janelle.
Repeal.
No.
Let's go here. I think we're in pretty good shape there. That's a pretty good cross section. I think I'm going to move us to closing statements for you all so we can get the next ward in without going too late for them. And so let's start with closing statements, and these will be a minute each. And we'll start with Jesse.
Thank you for sharing your evening and for keeping an open mind about me. There's no doubt that we need fresh voices on our council, but not just any voice. I am running to represent us and make a meaningful contribution to the quality of our life. I believe in investing in children. I believe in empowering people over special interests. I believe in clean air, water, energy, and sustainable infrastructure. And I believe in equal opportunity for all. And for too long, our council has compromised the potential of our future generations. And these aren't dreams. These are goals within reach with the appropriate, bold, progressive leadership in place. I have the knowledge, experience, passion, and work ethic to bring value to our city council. I pledge to always center our needs and never shy away from demanding justice for our communities. Our candidacy is about rejecting the status quo, but it is also about hope and carving a new equitable path forward. True agents of change don't hide from the truth or try to silence their constituents. Change is here, and I believe that we can accomplish this together. And as the only candidate in this race that is championing equity for all Ward 3 residents, I humbly ask you for your support and vote. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jesse. Mark.
Thank you. In a recap, I deeply care about the future of Santa Ana. I don't have all the answers. Once elected, my focus after the election is on fiscal solvency. By monitoring monthly and maintaining a balanced budget, this is going to be a challenge for us. Also, we need to initiate new outreach programs, partnering with the chamber to help our business owners survive and prosper and become more vibrant. We need economic development more than ever. We need to also prioritize our public safety and be smart in utilizing technology without being with it being cost effective. Education we need to work with the school district to provide permanent Wi-Fi, therefore bringing equity to the online learning process. We have too many areas in the city that are not connected via hotspots or Wi-Fi. Neighborhood issues. We need to empower our neighborhoods with good information and listen to what they have to say and what they feel they need. Parks, we need to clean them up, make them safe again, and provide more green space. Homeless, we need to move them out of our neighborhoods, out of this downtown area, so we can compassionately, but we have to do this compassionately. Finally, with housing, we need to focus on improving our housing mix for our workforce on all levels. In conclusion, I humbly accept your vote, and thank you. I'm Mark McLaughlin, Ward 3.
Thank you, Mark. Danny.
Thank you for everybody who took the time to listen to us talk. I am not a politician. I don't have a degree in political science, urban development. I don't have any fancy endorsements, nor do I care to get them, nor would I accept them. The idea of getting an endorsement from another career politician from a different city has always baffled me. I also didn't seek any financial help from special interest groups. That includes both developers and unions. Over 90% of my campaign has been funded by my own pockets. The reason why I'm running my campaign in this way, despite the countless advice that I need money to win, is that if I were to win, I don't want to be beholden to anyone other than the people who voted me in. There is something very wrong going on in our city, and we finally have a chance to make things right. What we need are transparent, honest people who are not career politicians or are not there to benefit their pockets. If you vote for me, I promise to bring with me an extra seat. That seat would belong to the residents of Santa Ana. I would use every avenue possible, as I am already doing now, to bring the news directly to you and cut off the middleman. Shout out to neighbors of Santa Ana. I am hopeful of what the future will bring. It's time to rise to the level of greatness that we were destined to be as a county seat. And with that, God bless America and God bless Santa Ana. Thanks.
Thank you, Danny. Jeffrey.
Thank you, Roberto. This November, there will be no greater vote that you will cast that will impact your day-to-day quality of life than these local elections. Mr. McLaughlin said, endorsements make elections. And if that's true, then shame on us. Don't give your vote away to an endorsement that was paid for in an age-old friendship, or even worse, a quid pro quo. I urge you to become informed and cast a vote that is good for you and our ward. And that is why on my website, I've actually provided links to each and every candidate in Ward 3. I spoke to you about Dr. King's vision. Well, I have a vision that Santa Ana can return to a collection of elevated experiences, the beauty and restorative power of neighborhood communities unlike anywhere else, coupled with revitalized Main Street corridor, a robust downtown, and a business district dripping with the anticipation and excitement of world-changing ideas and the exploration of art and music and culturally inspired cuisine. We can be, once again, a place of destination built for the future on the foundation of our past. We're rooted in a resilient spirit of old Santa Ana with its beautiful Hispanic culture. And right now, while our world is paused, my aspiration is that tomorrow will be better than just a return to normal. Join me on my campaign for a bold future with better days ahead.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Janelle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Connect to Council for giving me this opportunity to speak about my candidacy, for bringing all of us candidates together to discuss the issues facing Santa Ana and specifically Ward 3, to Norberto Santana Jr. for moderating this forum, and to our audience members for giving us your attention this evening and for paying close attention to these important races. I have experience in policy that would definitely like to bring into the city as someone who is young and has new innovative ideas. So if you have any questions for me, want to get to know me more, get involved in my campaign, please visit my website at votewelker, WELKER.com. In addition, you can follow me on my campaign Facebook page at Janelle Welker for Santa Ana City Council, Ward 3, or on Instagram at Welker 2020 at Vote Welker 2020. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak to you, and I humbly request your vote.
Thank you all. Great job. Again, appreciate all of you making yourself available and answering all the different questions under a tight format. We'll start bringing on the Ward 5 candidates now. You can start turning on your cameras, and we'll transition on to you. And again, just thanks for everybody for hanging in there with us, and great discussion about the future of the city. Let's see here. So for Ward 5, we have Jonathan Hernandez, Victor Mendez, Laura Perez, and Juan Villegas. So if you guys can turn your cameras on, we'll start moving towards opening statements. And we'll start with here. Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let's start with you. And opening statements are 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. I believe in change. I believe that people should be invested in and that every child deserves a quality education. I believe that people are not defined by their adversities, but how they respond to them. I believe in the people of Santa Ana. I was born and raised in the Artesia Pilar neighborhood, and I am a proud product of SAUSD schools. As a resident, I have experienced all of the best and worst that our city has to offer. Our city is a diverse city with rich cultural history and strong community values. From the city's founder, William H. Spurgeon, to the beautiful Black community who introduced us to Little Texas, to my grandparents who migrated from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico to Santana in the 1950s. We share this community. We share its stories, and to many, this community has been our only home. I want to make this city better for everybody. I plan on doing that by putting people first. by increasing access to education with the introduction of a citywide free Wi-Fi program, by investing in our parks and our community centers, prioritizing early childhood education, intervention and prevention music and art programs, and having a comprehensive public safety strategy that addresses the root causes of crime. I am a true product of Ward 5, and I bring valuable lived experience and knowledge to City Hall. I always knew that if change was going to come, it wasn't going to come from those at the top, but from those who have been at the bottom. As your council member, I am committed to providing unconditional care to the residents of Ward 5. I am your homegrown candidate, Jonathan Hernandez.
Thank you, Jonathan. Victor.
I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak to the community tonight. It's events such as these that strengthen our civic engagement and obviously improve our government. I come from a civic-minded family. For myself, I've been involved in work with a small business community and as a spokesman and an advocate. I've also registered voters in Santa Ana, some from some of the most impoverished neighborhoods there are. Additionally, I've worked on campaigns both here and in Santa Ana and in Orange County. Santa Ana has been a part of my life for many years. My father came here in 1965, transferring from Los Angeles to sell life insurance. Shortly after graduating UCLA with my BA, I interned with the County of Orange based here in Santa Ana while I was pursuing my Master's of Public Administration at Cal State Palm Beach. I have raised two sons, and as a single divorced parent, I'm also a grandfather and I'm also a senior citizen, very proud senior citizen as well at that. Today in Santa Ana, we face many deep challenges. In addition to COVID-19, we have some serious financial issues. Make no doubt about it, these are very difficult times, and it's time to step up and provide leadership. I'm running as a call to public service, not for myself, not to wet my pocket, not to strengthen my career, but to help the city of Santa Ana with what I have to offer. I feel we can do better, and we deserve so much better. More than any other candidate, I am prepared for the challenges and opportunities that are in front of us on day one. My 35 years of experience as a businessman and civic leader, and my management experience in government and the private sector, solving real problems are very similar to what Santa Ana now faces. On November 3rd, you'll have the choice to move Santa Ana forward, and I am the candidate to help you. I look forward to answering your questions tonight.
Thank you, Victor. Laura.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Perez, and I am running for Santa Ana's Ward 5 because I love my city and my community. I am running to bring up residents' perspective of the struggles that our working class community faces on a daily basis. My priorities are to enhance the quality of life that our residents deserve by advocating for safe green spaces, affordable housing, and investing in our youth, rather than supporting developments that will push our residents out, and getting rid of flawless programs that incarcerate our youth, such as the first gang injunction in the county that happens to be in Santa Ana. As a native to Ward 5 for over 35 years, the majority in Santa Anita neighborhood and now part of Artesia Pilar, I was very fortunate to partake in recreational programs that both cities had to offer. Now as an adult, I have come to realize that our youth no longer has those opportunities here in our city. Our local park should be a safe haven for our children, and making sure that every resident has access to open green spaces will be the top of my list. True affordable housing that matches residents' wages along with cost of living expenses should be easily accessible incentives amongst all of our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Juan.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Norberto Santana from the Voice of OC and Connected Council for hosting this event. My name is Juan Villegas. I'm the current council member for Ward 5. I'm also the Mayor Pro Tem for the last 2 years. I am a 30-year veteran of the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I'm a United States Army veteran. I was a combat medic. And I was an instructor with Project Youth for the past 16 years on juvenile delinquency prevention. And I'm also the author of La Vida Tiene Valores, which is a parenting book on delinquency prevention and winner of the 2014 International Latino Book Awards on parenting. Le quiero dar las gracias a todos ustedes, los que nos están acompañando esta noche. Les habla su servidor, Juan Villegas, el vicealcalde de la ciudad de Santa Ana. Es un placer estar aquí esta noche con ustedes. Kinchao PV, Tentoy La Juan Villegas, Tanfo Santa Ana, Council Member, Ward 5, Gaman. And thank you, Norberto.
Thank you, Juan. Let's move to the questions. We'll start with the first one that has to do with the streetcar. And the streetcar is coming to Santa Ana. How would you envision that the streetcar's role in the future of the city, and how does it benefit local residents? Laura, let's start with you. And these are all for a minute. The regular questions is just a minute timeline, so you guys can manage your time.
Thank you, Norberto. You know, I just happen to be from the area where our streetcar is supposed to end on the west side of the Santa Ana River. And that's actually the project that got me into City Hall. The way that I call it is a streetcar to nowhere. It's literally going to loop around to an area where there's no residential homes at this time. There is a lot of development that is starting to happen, and it might benefit the future residents that will be there in the very near future. Unfortunately, it doesn't benefit any of us right now. I live 2 blocks away from the yard where all of the trains will be, and I literally work between a block away from where it will be circling around me. So at this time, you know, it's something that we can't really fight against, and we have to embrace it. And I'm hoping that it will bring the revenue and the vision that the city was focusing on.
Thank you, Laura. Juan, what do you think?
Well, thank you for the question, Norberto. The streetcar is 20 years in the making. So, you know, long ago when they started this project, you know, it's now come to a fruition where they're laying down the tracks. I believe that it's going to connect, the vision is to connect the people from Garden Grove and Anaheim all the way down to Santa Ana, all the way to the airport. And this is just one leg of the streetcar that's underway. They're hoping, OCTA is hoping that this would minimize the traffic in Santa Ana with people taking the streetcar. It also would be something that a lot of people would want to use if they wanted to go from Santa Ana. You know, let's say you take the train up to the train station in Santa Ana, then the streetcar across into Garden Grove and back. It's more of a tourist type of thing. But, you know, a lot of people who don't have vehicles, this will be a means of transportation.
Thank you, Juan. Victor, what's your take? Victor?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, one moment. Well, I have a lot of take. I currently live right across the street from one of the stops on the trolley, and I'm well aware of the noise that could transpire from the development of the trolley. I've been woken up by the jackhammers at 3 in the morning, and that's not a pleasant experience, but I have 10 years of rail transit experience. I probably have about $3 billion worth of development in my career. I was as a consultant from the MTA, and then I worked for the MTA in rail construction. I'm very much aware of the types of opportunities and the problems that could arise from this particular project. Since it's been 20 years in the making, I'm willing to work with it. I am deeply concerned about the impact of small business. I'm deeply concerned that when these types of projects go through, they tend to get gentrified, and people like myself could get displaced and out in the street. I'm seeing some very good things go on in LA County with respect to transit-oriented development, where we're having apartments built right next to the rail line. So I think we have to take care of the advantages carefully. We have to look at the opportunities, and we have to make sure during construction, our small businesses are going to be protected. And after construction, we have a safe line that doesn't get people injured or killed. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Jonathan.
Yes, thank you for such a critical question. My family is called Artisa Pilar Home since the 1950s. I live on Civic Center and Rate. Nobody decides to move next to a transit station or next to a train, next to any sort of location where there's massive public transportation that's happening. I'm concerned, much like my neighbors, about the transit-induced displacement that's going to come as a result of this. The whole purpose of this streetcar was to bring other cities together, but at what cost? We know that people are just going to come through here. They're not going to live in this community. They're going to come here, spend their dollars, and get out. People like myself, this is our home. This isn't a place that you just come to eat. This is where I'm raising my family. It's where I'm raising my daughter. I'm concerned about the location and its efficiency. I think that this could have been much more carefully done. I'm concerned, and I'm going to advocate for my neighbors.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's go to the next question. And if I miss you at all, because sometimes as I go back and forth between people, I'll try to vary it up. But if I miss you, don't hesitate to give me a shout. Let's start the next round of questions with Juan. And the question is about rent control in Santa Ana. Would you support a rent control stabilization policy in Santa Ana? And if not, how would you then improve affordable housing in the city? And again, let's start with Juan.
Thank you, Norberto, for the question. The state of California has already implemented some type of rent control, a cap that would limit, the increases throughout the state. I believe, in my personal opinion, that rent control is not the answer for the city of Santa Ana. And when it comes to affordable housing, Santa Ana is a champion of affordable housing because we have created so much affordable housing. Problem that I have is that you can't control it. You can have people coming from outside of the city and that'll benefit from all of these homes when their city is not building any. And it's kind of unfair because it is illegal to deny someone that comes from the outside here. So, every time we build something, half of it, none of it is guaranteed for people in Santa Ana. And boy, would I like to have that, but it's illegal to do that. And for the next 7 years, there's plenty of affordable housing already in the pipeline. And we have always met our RENA numbers throughout the state.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Jonathan, do you want to offer us your take on that?
Absolutely. I became a father at the age of 17, and I got my first apartment at that age. And every single year, it's gotten progressively more difficult to live and raise a family in this city. As wages stagnate and racial disparities grow, housing prices soar. Housing is not accessible to my neighbors. And we need to adopt regulations that are going to reduce the inequalities and improve economic opportunities for my neighbors. The way that we do that is we need to have rent control because that affects me. I'm one of the very few candidates that we see running for office that is actually going to champion policy that is designed to keep people like me afloat. I am that neighbor that needs these very programs. I understand it firsthand, and I am going to advocate strongly for rent control.
Thank you, Jonathan. Laura.
So sorry. I believe in rent control. There is an organization at this time that has been advocating for rent control to be on our ballot. My parents are homeowners. They've been homeowners for about 2 years. They finally got the opportunity to purchase the home that they rented for about 15 years. I am recently married and unable to purchase a home that is actually affordable between my income and my husband's income. And it's a little concerning because this is a community that I grew up in. It's the community that I'm devoted to. And it's a community that is forcing tenants and residents to rent and not be homeowners. One of the issues that I guess we all focus on are our homeless community that is a sore eye for many. And it's, I see the humanity part of it that we need to help them, but we also need to think about people that are in densely populated communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Victor.
He's muted.
Yeah. Would you mind repeating the question again since I'm the last one very briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. There's been a movement for rent control in Santa Ana. Would you support a rent control stabilization policy in the city? And if not, how would you then improve housing affordability in the city?
Sure. For one, I live in an apartment right now. and I understand the need of rent control. I'm also a business person, so I do support rent control, but maybe to the extent it caps rents at a reasonable CPI, so our landlords can keep pace with the cost of living and not necessarily make it a difficult time for them. Affordable housing seems to have a negative connotation. Let me be very clear. I am a product of affordable housing. My father was a World War II decorated veteran with a Bronze Star who got a VA loan so we could live in a decent community with decent housing and good schools. I am a product of that system. I fully intend to make sure other people have the opportunities that I had by growing up in quality, affordable housing. We have to, keep our commitments to future generations so they too can have the opportunities that I had, the opportunity to play with children, play in the street, go to a good school, have barbecues in your backyard. These are the things I grew up with, and I don't want to see another generation sacrifice because we're unable to come to terms with a quality policy for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So your next question is on the defund the police question. This is the defund the police is something that's been trending heavily this year on social media. We've all seen the protests. The question is, should the police be defunded? If so, why? And if not, what measures would you take to improve public safety? Juan, let's start with you.
Thank you for the question, Norberto. So I 100% absolutely do not agree with defunding the police. Actually, we have the city of Santa Ana has a lot of crime in it. There's also 64 gangs with 2,100 documented gang members. We have a large amount of parolees. We have probationers. We have people that are not in the system but that commit crime. Then you have people that come from outside the city to prey on residents here. So the city council across the nation, their number one priority is to protect its residents. And that's what I am all about. The city of Santa Ana is operating right now at half of the officers that we should be having. If you just look at the index, we're at 0.08, we should be at 0.19. And it's just, we actually need more police. The number one complaint that I get is, hey, we don't have enough police, so they take too long to get here. And so I am totally not for that. But I do believe in accountability of our officers.
Thank you, Juan. Laura, let's hear your take.
So I think a lot of people are taking this word defunding the police very literal. What needs to happen is our police department, honestly, at this time, should not be given additional money where other areas in our city lack that resource. I think it's really important that just like your employer would give you a raise and give you a pay that is adequate to the performance of your job. I think it's very important that at this time we take the numbers and we look at them and we see, have we been performing at the level that we should with the number of employees that we have at this time? The number 54 that Mr. Villegas mentioned, those figures have not changed in over 2 years and attending meetings for public safety. So obviously something is going on. I believe in not giving additional money to the police department at this time until they prove that they are worthy of the money that they get. We do have a lot of other departments that could benefit from those funds.
Thank you, Laura. Victor, let's hear your take.
Well, defund the police is kind of a euphemism. What really people are talking about is taking some of the resources or finances of the police department and maybe directing them toward homeless, youth intervention, things like that. I think there's a place for those programs, no doubt, and I'm a supporter of them, and I've worked with them before. But today, there is a city budget in place, and what I would like to do is ask the chief of police to come forth with a program budget. There is some information in the budget right now, but it does not make sense to the common citizen. I want to understand, where is this money going? What are you doing with it? And what's our investment? And then ask the public to weigh in. Are these your priorities? Do you feel these needs? And then we can go from there. I'm not really taking a position that we should do something this fiscal year, but we have to understand where that money is going. My campaign team did a survey of about 10 comparable cities in Orange County, all self-funded independent police departments. We found that Santa Ana Police Department has about a 43% of general fund to the general fund. That 43% is on average to all those other 10 cities. So I think we have a productivity problem. I think we need to understand where the money's going, and we need to hold the police chief and the department accountable. Thank you. That's my answer.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Yeah, I love this question. I support the reallocation of funds. I think that we need to shrink police responsibility. We need to delegate some of law enforcement's duties to other experts. We should have social workers responding to homeless complaints, healthcare workers dealing with people with substance abuse issues. I was the first generation of men in my family to not become a gang member, to not go to prison. I know that no one is born a member of a gang, but you can be born into a gang injunction. And as a result, you have a significantly higher chance of going to prison than you do to college. So if we want more educators, more scientists, more social workers, we have to invest in community. I am a testament that we are growing roses in concrete, and that should not be. We should have a community where we can sustainably help people grow, where they don't have to go through all these hoops and go through all this adversity. That's why I'm running, is to create pathways so that folks can do that. And I think that part of that process is reallocation of funds.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to move on to the next question, which is our last one before you guys, in a sense, get to address a priority that you haven't been asked about. The last question for this series is on homelessness. And the question is, do you think that the city of Santa Ana has done enough to address homelessness in Orange County? What do you think that what else should the city be doing? And how would you strategize with other cities in the counties to ensure that everyone across Orange County is doing their fair share of handling the challenge? We can start with Jonathan. We'll just go in reverse order this time.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that there are very clear housing disadvantages that residents face in the city: overcrowding, falling behind on mortgage payments, rent, moving houses often, insecure housing tenure, inadequate housing, eviction, poor physical housing conditions. These are all systematic. What we are seeing in this community is not these issues of homelessness. We are seeing people experiencing homelessness at very, very high rates. And we have people that don't have the adequate professional experience to address this. I have been a community health worker and have worked in the field of reentry for close to 7 years now. And I have worked with a population of young people that are experiencing homelessness. I know that there's a growing demographic of people 13 to 24 that become houseless. And we need sound solutions, wraparound program, reentry services, mental health support, counselors, therapists. A lot of folks have mental health conditions that go unaddressed. I plan on supporting them.
Thank you, Jonathan. Victor, what's your take?
Sure. Well, living in downtown, I experience homelessness, the homeless population almost on a daily basis. What I've observed is that we need to look at homeless, and not as a group of a population group, but maybe it's a different types of groups. Between the high functioning homeless who are simply trying to get on their feet and get a job, and the low functioning who have serious mental illness, and that we probably as a city are not equipped to handle. On the high functioning side, I've talked to union groups about trying to bring them in to help them out. They seem very receptive to that. I'm very familiar with the Salvation Army. I'm familiar with Mercy House. I'm familiar with a lot of the shelters in and about this county. And I think one of the things we can do is outreach to these people to get them the job and get them on their feet. The low functioning homelessness, we have to lean on the county. They're simply not doing their job. They're taking money from the general fund, giving it to the sheriff, and then Santa Ana is left to deal with it. That's just simply unfair and inequitable. And that simply has to stop, and we have to make a plan to do that. Certainly we should look and strategize with our neighbors to the south. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Santa Ana is no longer equipped to handle all the societal ills of the county. We will do our fair share, but it's time for South County cities to step up.
Thank you, Victor.
Sure.
Laura.
I believe the city of Santa Ana has done their fair share. What I believe also is that the rest of the county has not. And I think we need to focus our attention to holding the county accountable for for their decision to open up a shelter, an additional shelter in the city of Santa Ana, especially around residential areas. Everyone just stops at a shelter as being the only solution, but we need to go beyond that as well, and making sure that every city in the county opens up a shelter, not just Santa Ana, and that we have transition programs and support groups so that we can take them from an environment where it should only be temporary and giving them a permanent basis as far as, homelessness, giving them a roof over their head and providing the services that they lack. I'm sure there's a lot of folks here that would love to be in a 24-hour shelter space, and that's not what they're receiving at this time.
Thank you, Laura. Juan.
Thank you, Norberto, for the question. And I'll be careful about how I answer because we are in litigation with the many cities in the county. And a lot of this stuff is privileged to closed session, so I can't really elaborate too much. Look, it takes a lot of money to sue everyone, and we were trying. And if we're not suing someone at the moment, because maybe something came up in court among the lawyers, and next thing you know, they're not being sued. Santa Ana most definitely has done more than its share to deal with the homelessness. And, one of the reasons is a lot of the other cities, they were bringing people here. We were able to prove that, and then we're still going to court. The county does not, and I told this to residents, the county does not need our permission for them to put a shelter here. And I have gone to the county, to the supervisor's office and to their public meetings to speak and ask them to, see if they can, place a shelter somewhere else. And it's just tough because they don't have to really answer to us, especially the entire board.
Thank you, Juan. I'm going to move towards your last question, which is basically a question that you can essentially post to yourself in terms of, if you're elected, what is an important issue that you would address in your ward? Victor, let's start with you.
I mean, from the standpoint of Ward 5, I'm going to put some at the top of the list here. Homelessness is important, jobs, housing, but the biggest issue that I see and I hear is traffic safety. I've been almost killed 3 times here in downtown Santa Ana. The latest happened 2 weeks ago. Okay, when a car went through a utility pole, I had missed that car by less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes had passed. I've been at Tennessee 4. I would not be speaking here tonight. I'd be dead. That's one of the reasons I'm also running. I feel for too long, City Hall has played a deaf ear to our concerns. We have drag racing, we have streetcar racing, we have people dying, and I'm tired of it. I want it to stop. I'm gonna do everything I can to improve it. With all due respect to the City Council, I think they're making some movement, but I have a much stronger plan that I envision to finally end this madness that is affecting our community. So obviously, traffic management and getting control of these speedsters and these high fatality types of accidents has to come to an end. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Jonathan, what would you address?
Yeah, this is something that should be important to everybody, and I'm quite disappointed that no candidates have brought it up. We're the youngest city in Orange County, age 13 to 24. 31% of our residents are under the age of 18. I plan on going back to the days of education first. I'm a father to a 10-year-old daughter. I'm going to look to introduce a citywide free Wi-Fi program to increase access to education. I understand as a community health worker that education is a social determinant of our public health. I'm also going to look to introduce early childhood education programs. Public safety looks like that. And furthermore, part of that strategy is having a comprehensive approach to public safety and addressing all the facets that make our community safe.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's see here. Let's go. Juan.
Thank you for the question. Obviously, homelessness is something that affects the entire city. There are certain pockets in the Ward 5 area that need a lot. There's the highest number of reported graffiti, highest number of teenage pregnancy, highest number of high school dropout. I started a scholarship for people in our ward so they can go to school And I really didn't matter, to me, it didn't matter what their grades were. If you want to go to school, we'll help you out as best we can. And I also feel that, you know, we need to, everything starts at home. And so I created the Family Justice Center. It took me 3 long years to get that to work on the home. You know, you can't send kids to school if there's domestic violence in their house or they're being abused. So it's very, very tough to concentrate in school because these kids are going through trauma. So with that center, we're able to address that issue and, you know, so we can start at home first.
Thank you, Juan. Laura, let's move towards you. And again, the question is, if you're elected, what is an important issue that you would address in your ward?
You know, one of the biggest issues that I know at this time, and it's more relevant than other, are the number of cases of COVID. I reside in the zip code with the highest cases throughout in the entire county, and it's reflective of the lack of resources and the dense population that we live in, and it all goes hand in hand with not having rent control, not having true affordable housing that will allow us to have the space to go outside and self-quarantine in a very safe environment. That also leads to having additional open spaces. I grew up four blocks away from, you know, the Willowick development right now. And if there's a time for us to ever fight for open green spaces, that is such a great opportunity to invest our money, to invest our time and our focus. And I hope that whoever gets elected in Ward 1 and Ward 3, that we're able to work hand in hand with making that decision become a reality.
Thank you, Laura. So I'm going to move down to the lightning round, which are just very quick, yes or no, more or less. It's the idea of just one or the other. And we'll go through that before you guys can move into your closing statements. And I'll just vary up the order as I ask you all the questions. So the first one is, will you accept the support of the Santa Ana Police Officers Association? And again, the answer is just yes or no. Juan.
I have not interviewed.
Laura.
No.
Victor.
I've interviewed and I will accept their endorsement.
Jonathan.
Absolutely not.
Let's see here. Rent control in Santa Ana. Do you support the idea of rent control in Santa Ana? Jonathan.
It should be on the ballot. Yes.
Victor.
Speaking for the thousands of downtown residents who live in apartments, absolutely yes.
Laura.
Yes.
And Juan.
It's not the solution for Santa Ana.
Let's move on to immigration. Under current state law, such as the Trust Act, it limits what information cities can share with ICE. Would you collaborate with ICE more or less, or at the same level that the current state law allows? Juan.
We have to abide by the law. We have no choice.
Laura.
Less.
Victor.
Depending on the presidential election, the same. After that, we'll reevaluate.
Jonathan.
It's a proud no for me.
Let's talk taxes. Measure X. Would you consider changing or repealing Measure X? Jonathan.
No.
Laura.
No.
Victor.
I'm running as a fiscal conservative, but this tax is needed at this time. Yes.
Juan.
Only the voters can repeal the tax.
Let's talk public safety. The Townsend gang injunction. Do you support it or not? Juan.
It's a tool that's needed.
Laura.
No.
Victor.
I will support anything that lowers gang activity in our city, and that I would like to hear from the police chief in this respect.
Jonathan.
I won't support it because it doesn't lower gang activity. It increases it. So that's a no.
Got it. Needle exchange programs. What is your position? Are you for or against? Laura.
Against.
Juan.
Strong no.
Victor.
Repeat the question again, please.
Needle exchange programs. Are you in support or against them?
Against them.
Jonathan.
I stand with public health. I'm for.
let's see here. Term limits for the city council and for the mayor. Are you in favor of term limits for politicians? Laura?
Yes.
Juan?
Yes.
Victor?
Well, the 12-year term limit, I'm hereby declaring I will not serve longer than 8.
Jonathan?
Yes, I support term limits.
I'm going to move us now to the to your closing statements, which will be a minute and a half, and we'll start with Victor.
Sure. Well, tonight you've heard from candidates in Ward 5 looking forward to being your next council member. I am proud to stand with these folks. I think they're very intelligent and a lot of them have good ideas. Not to say mine, they're better or worse, they just have simply different ideas. As a voter, you'll have to make that choice who you want to elect. In making your choice, you can decide to stay the course and hope things get better, try something new and exciting, or vote for proven experience in order to address the serious financial $14 million shortfall of the city, as well as other challenges that the city now faces. I offer you the proven choice, the experienced choice, one with strong experience and a choice ready to lead on day one. I don't need a primer on local government, and a choice that will offer you intelligent decision-making. The vote for Victor Mendez is a vote for proactive and responsive government that will listen to your concerns and, more importantly, act on them. And the vote that offers the opportunity and positive change versus 4 more years of the same path forward, or an uncharted and unproven path. To do this, I will need your vote. Our future is in your hands, and together we can and will make a positive difference. Please vote for Vic Mendez on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Laura?
As a lifelong resident of Santa Ana, my sole interest is to be an advocate for our residents and with transparency and dignity. I will ask that my community and neighbors hold me accountable as their representative should I be elected. A seat on our city council is a seat for Ward 5. I am blessed to be a Ward 5 Santanera because it's part of the city that holds my heart. I am beyond blessed to be able to work and reside within my ward, a luxury that many don't have at this time. It has given me an opportunity to focus my attention on the environment that surrounds our communities. I understand that our community lacks a lot of resources because I have lived here my entire life. This pandemic has brought to light the lack of resources that Ward 5 is up against. Living in the zip code with the highest cases in the entire county, it's disheartening and only proves the need for true affordable housing that will alleviate the street parking issues that we have and will open up spaces and will focus on opening up more spaces that our community is in need of. It's time to elect someone that is representative of their immediate communities and not tainted by special interests. So with this said, I encourage you to support me, Laura Perez, as your next city council member for Ward 5. I am a resident. I'm not a politician, but I do have the heart and desire to make a change here in our city. You can give me a call back. Give me a call whenever you can, whenever you feel like needing an answer, and I will make sure to look for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Jonathan?
Ward 5 has been home to my family since the 1950s. 4 generations of Santa Ana residents and counting. For as long as I can remember, my neighborhood was always counted out. We were always looked at as less than. We were the kids who were too rough, too tough, too poor, not educated enough. I grew tired of being counted out, and I decided to fight back. All I have ever known is to fight for what is right, to fight for justice and peace, to fight for education, not incarceration, to fight for Black lives, to fight for equity. I fight for my daughter and for all the children who live in this community. I was once in your shoes. I too wanted to play that instrument. I too wanted to learn how to box. I too wanted to go to that college. I'm running for office to create pathways so that you can, so that you have a path to do the things that you love most, so that youth have access to free quality internet so that they can get that education, so that we as a city have early childhood education programs to support school readiness, so that we have pathways for college, not prison. It's time that we do away with business as usual politics and elect a community member who is truly rooted in the neighborhood and stands with the people. My name is Jonathan Ryan Hernandez, and I am the people's candidate for the residents of Ward 5.
Jonathan, thank you. Juan.
I want to take a quick second to thank again Connect to Council and Mr. Norberto Santana, the voice of OC. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for Ward 5. It is a pleasure to be here with you. And, I know that your heart's in the right place. And including, all the residents who are joining us tonight, thank you very much for being there with us, hanging there, because our group was the last. And I am not, people that know me know, I am not afraid of making a hard decision. City council, there's a lot of things that happen. There's also a lot of legalities. There's a lot of closed session. And sometimes people wonder, why is the city council making these decisions? And well, there's a lot of legalities that come with it. And so we try our best, all of my colleagues on the council, we try our best to do what's right for the city. And I want to thank you again for joining us. Le quiero dar las gracias a todos ustedes que nos acompañaron esta noche. Les agradezco mucho por su tiempo y que Dios les bendiga, que pasen muy buenas noches.
Thank you, Juan. And again, I just want to thank all of the candidates. I'll come back on video here, if that works. So one thing to keep in mind, next week, we will have the mayor's forum. So you get a chance to see all of the different candidates that will come up to be mayor. So make sure to tune in for that one. It's next week, September 17th, same hour from 6 to 8. And boy, just what an incredible session tonight. A hand of applause to all of the candidates. Just a wonderful collection of people that care about their city and have a wonderful ideas. Thank you always for putting yourselves out there to lots of tough questions and paying attention to things like time limits, which can be very difficult to communicate through. But again, really appreciate you guys putting yourselves out there. It's the best aspects of our radical experiment in self-government. And it's people like you that really make our government move forward, and you're there to be questioned and held accountable. So much appreciated for you guys putting yourselves out there. And the residents of Santa Ana have got some great choices in front of them. Thank you all again.